Welcome to the Bayou City Soccer Podcast. Whether inside or outside the loop, we are talking everything soccer in Houston. Y'all ready? Let's get it.
Welcome into a special episode of the Bayou City Soccer Podcast. We're pleased to be joined today by Apple TV's host extraordinaire, Kevin Egan. Kevin, how's it going?
I am great, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Dustyn. Looking forward to chatting a bit of Dynamo. It's a good time to be doing it.
I know, right? It's it's a lot of talk around the league. It feels like Dynamo fans especially feel like the national folks don't talk about us as one of those national folks. What have you seen from this Houston team of late?
So when we do that with our show, when we analyze like different teams, maybe more so than others, sometimes it's hard for fans to believe this, but sometimes it's form and it's interest. And so if you're middle to lower in the pack, and if your football isn't that interesting, sometimes you don't get the same amount of coverage that you would get if, I'll say the teams out loud, if you're Inter Miami or if you're LAFC and your stars are performing and you're gaining the headlines, you can understand why. But now I literally sent a text. Look, I'll show you just so we're all clear. I made sure to write here in the group. I don't know if you can see it here, but I basically said, we're diving in on Houston and St. Louis on this show. We have to. It's insane what both teams are doing right now. And the producer was like, absolutely, they're in. Because what Houston and St. Louis in the West are doing right now needs to be recognized. It's phenomenal. Like, what is it, 4 straight wins now without conceding a single goal, but the attack is starting to gel together. And now I think, given the balance in this team, and that's the key word here is real balance, because going forward, all that's missing now is a striker to step in and be the guy. And Duncan McGuire's got to be that guy.
Yeah, a lot of talk about Duncan McGuire coming in, Ponce on his way to Spain officially now. Talking about McGuire, we saw his first 2 seasons in Orlando. He was bagging goals. Then he went through those injuries, that failed transfer. What do you think McGuire can be? Do you think he can get back to that level of his early years in Orlando?
Well, I think he's a real complete striker, and I think he's great at bringing teammates into play. He's not a selfish striker in any way, and oftentimes you want your striker to be selfish. That's at least what Bradley Roy Phillips is talking about all the time on our shows. But McGuire will be a great facilitator, running the channels, holding the ball up. He's an all-action striker, which in many ways Ponce wasn't. And I felt like, I feel like Ponce's time in Major League Soccer just has a massive stain on it. And I say that with an asterisk because I felt he was a real talented player. And oftentimes I'd watch Houston play. And speaking of Bradley Roy Phillips, he'd often say, look, I wish Houston would play to his strengths a little bit more and give him service in the air, give him a chance to be that guy. And I just don't know if it was a great fit, whereas the McGuire signing feels like a greater fit. I do think, though, a bit of depth in behind Duncan McGuire to push him is needed in this transfer window for Houston if you're to really challenge and try and solidify a top 4 place in the West, which I think would be a big achievement. But obviously, look, Guilherme is doing his thing. Bogusz is a tremendous player. Ache still got it. Arthur is the general in midfield. Who am I forgetting in the team right now? I feel like I'm forgetting someone. McGlynn, obviously. Exactly. Nearly scores a worldie with the outside of the foot at the weekend. So it's an exciting time for Houston Dynamo fans.
Yeah, and you mentioned Guilherme, a lot of talk about he's leading newcomer of the year, probably forefront for that. There was a lot of talk when he signed, especially people like Matt Doyle, probably rightfully so, questioning, is this the right move? A 31-year-old, he's played in the 2nd division of Brazil. Maybe he's not. Is this the kind of move that you go for a DP? But he's proven a lot of that wrong. What have you seen from Guilherme this year that's made him so special?
Leadership. Look, he's been a captain at different clubs wherever he's been, and he's clearly bringing talent for his age. There's an explosive nature to his game that's really exciting. I question this as well, simply, from the data and looking at not the data, but looking at the trajectory of his career and wondering, is this the guy to galvanize Houston? Is this exactly what Houston needs? A side that finished 13th, was it last year, 12th or 13th in the West, missing out on the playoffs? Is he the guy? Man, he's been absolutely brilliant and then some. In fact, doing a bit of research on Guilherme and what he's done this year. So he leads Major League Soccer in goal contributions compared to his team's goals, right? So he's contributed to 68% of Houston's goals this year. Phenomenal. That's number one in Major League Soccer, which means at this point in time, Guilherme has to be in the conversation for MVP. There is no more important player, arguably today, for their team than Guilherme is for the Houston Dynamo. Second place on that list. I thought this list, when I was compiling it at work with my producer, would include Messi. I thought it would include Evander, and it doesn't. It's Guilherme number one with 68%. 64% of Montreal's goals have been contributed, goal or assist, by Prince Owusu. Dejan Joveljic, 55%. Nico Fernandez Marcao, 55%. Pep Biel, 53%. Anders Dreyer, Mirto Azuni. The list goes on. So I think that just goes to show you when he's contributing 19, what is it, 12 and 7 now, out of the team's 28 goals. Long may it continue. And now hopefully you get Maguire going as well. At the back, I didn't expect this, to be honest, from Resch and Holter. I didn't. Did you? Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I think especially Resch, he's a third round pick in the super draft
Yeah.
this year, kind of one of those picks that a lot of teams even punt
Yeah.
on, right? And he's come in and been incredible. Halter coming back from his injury after the World Cup, I think has been big for them too. But yeah, and we talk about it, but defensively, I think it's Ben Olsen's way, right? He's always been this coach that he wants to be very sound. And you mentioned it earlier, 4 straight shutouts for them. What have you seen from Jonathan Bond in that defense that's been so good?
Yeah. At times this year, there's been one or two questions around Bond, and I've wondered, quite honestly, is he the guy? Is he when you look at other teams right now around the MLS, and you want, like, there's plenty of teams, to be honest. Miami, Rocco Rios Novo, some of the mistakes of late have been well highlighted. I live in Atlanta, wearing an Atlanta World Cup hat. And Hoyos in goal, there's questions around him too. But Bond has been steady of late, like just really, like, no major risks, steady. There were moments there recently where we were critical of him for not coming off his line quick enough, which I think you can understand why. But all in, actually, I take that back. That's not Jonathan Bond. I'm thinking of someone else. Apologies. There's 30 teams we cover, so
Yeah.
that's definitely not Jonathan Bond. But I think all in all, he's been steady. The back two have looked good in the last 4 games in particular. And then the other one for me, which was always a big question mark coming into this season, was allowing Griffin Dorsey leave.
Yeah.
Allowing him leave, I felt he's the perfect backup for Alex Freeman leaving Orlando. Like, he's settled in beautifully. But I love what I'm seeing from an alley in that role. So it's like maybe Ben Olsen knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of questions here too. Like, well, Dwayne Holmes is going to play right back, or what are they going to do at right back? All of a sudden, yeah, Ben turns a winger and an alley into a very competent fullback in this league. But yeah, it's been crazy. Another guy that's we talked to Ben about this just recently, Hector Herrera. He came back to the Dynamo after a year with Toluca. There was a lot of questions. Well, Hector's just going to sit the bench. He's a good guy to have, in your locker room, but he's been very important for them. What have you seen from Hector this season?
Yeah, I'm just looking at his numbers here. 18, he started 10 of 18 games. That's about what you'd expect from
Yeah.
someone of his age. Now he's 36, 37 in April. He offers, first of all, leadership. Obviously, I think he had his family, am I right in saying that, live in Houston. So it was such
Right.
a natural fit for him to be happier. And this is one of those areas of the game that we can't quantify, is that when you're actually happy in your day to day and you show up for work and you've got a better attitude and his kids are in Houston, it makes a massive difference. There's no denying his quality on the ball. And he may have slowed down a little bit, but there's no denying it. And I think the player that probably is as important for this Houston team that gets a little bit more out of Ache is, of course, you know where I'm going with this, Artur. And Artur has just been such a tremendously underrated player in MLS over the years. When he was at Columbus, everyone wanted to talk about Darlington Nagbe, and understandably so. But guess what? Artur was there as well. Artur was in different teams in Columbus and always got the best out of his central midfielders. So I think he's absolutely helping this defense, but he's absolutely helping McGlynn and Hector Herrera further forward.
Yeah, Artur and Hector are very good friends too
Are
off
they
the
really?
field. And I think that's it. It definitely has brought out another side of Artur. Like
It's great to hear.
last year I think there was a lot of questions from some of us about what's up with Artur. Is it time to find another six? But yeah, having Hector back, I think the two of them work very well together. But looking ahead, we see the Dynamo two very tough road games. You talked about Vancouver, St. Louis has been an anomaly, has been flying up the table just as much as the Dynamo. But going to Vancouver, going to St. Louis on a Wednesday and a Saturday, a lot of talk about this Dynamo team. Are they for real? Does this road trip? What will this road trip say about that?
This is it. I mean, this is it. Look, the victory's absolutely wonderful. There's no denying it. Houston, Sporting Kansas City, New England, and this LA Galaxy team are not even comparable right now in any way whatsoever to Vancouver. And Vancouver just went to Seattle. They kind of got their mojo back a little bit. Brian White has a bit of an injury, but they played Sabi up front and he looked good. They play Alumi off the bench, the 18-year-old scores. He looked good when he came in. He was with Tunisia at the World Cup. There's so much flexibility and versatility to this team right now, with Ryan Gauld also playing alongside Thomas Muller. And then it's crazy. Like, Blackman's on the bench coming in, but watching Priso and Laborda play together at the back, Kubas was everywhere. They're still fixing the issue that is Seb Berhalter, who's now at Middlesbrough. Oli Larraz has played that role, but they're after bringing in a Serbian midfielder as well, who'll be in with a chance. And I think Javine Badwell is a young player breaking through the academy that, when I spoke with Brian White a few weeks ago, I said, who are we not speaking about enough from Vancouver? And he responded instantly by saying Javine Badwell. So keep an eye on him. He can play in many different roles out wide in a kind of an inverted attack the other day, but he can also play in that central midfield role as well. So this is a ridiculously tough test. This is the ultimate test. But I think the way Houston are set up with Bogusz, Guilherme, Maguire, like, this team can hit teams in transition. And so now it's about, like, you need an all-time performance from Arturo. You need him to marshal that defense. And Jonathan Bond needs to stand on his head, but that's just Vancouver. Then you have to go to St. Louis. So there's no question in my mind, given the way these two games set up, that these are the two toughest games for Houston this year. No question, because St. Louis at the moment are playing unbelievably well under Yoann Damet. Yoann Damet is the youngest coach in the league. What he inherited and how he's turning it around this season is one of the greatest success stories in MLS alongside Houston so far this year. St. Louis, since May 3rd, when they had, I believe it was 6 points at the time, and since May 3rd, I think they've only dropped like 2 points. They've been outrageously good. So they lose Marcel Hartel, and I don't think it tripped them up in any way whatsoever, because there were other players stepped up. Betcher finally had a couple of goals. He struggled in front of goal this year, only his fourth for the season. But to stop going off on a tangent for a second, Dustyn, this is the ultimate test right now. Where exactly are Houston at? If you can, I'm going to say this, and I know it doesn't sound very ambitious, but if you even take a point or two away from these two games, I think it stands Houston in really good stead going forward. He's
Kevin Egan. You can catch him on MLS 360 on Apple TV. Kevin, are you still trailing in the Golden Boot race there on 360?
I'm trailing a few, but I got off the bottom. I got a goal late from half of Navajo for the Colorado Rapids, so
no more photos.
Dax McCarty
no more bad
is
photos,
off the bottom, yeah. But make sure everyone joins us. We've got MLS Countdown at 6:30 on Apple TV tomorrow. We've got 360, and we're staying on air obviously throughout the late games, like the game in Vancouver. And then I'm on air actually for, it's pretty much 8 straight hours with no bathroom breaks or nothing. It's great. Like Countdown 360 and straight into MLS Wrap-Up with Dax and I tomorrow late into the night. So it should be fun. But can I ask you one question before we leave? What is it that you feel the national media is not discussing enough when it comes to the Houston Dynamo?
I think a lot of people think that the Dynamo just don't get talked about. And I think it's a lot of what you said, it's the it's the Miamis, Nashville now, but it's the Miamis and the LAFCs. And I think people but also it's a little warranted, right? The Dynamo have been, kind of a mid-table team. So they haven't really given the national media a lot to talk about. But I think a lot of people now are expecting it now that they're getting there. And like you said, it's coming. You're talking to your producers and wanting to talk about the Dynamo. So I think it's just gaining that respect. I think the Dynamo are slowly getting there. But yeah, it's I think a lot of fans too, it's Houston, it's the middle of the country. It's the coastal biases.
I don't know if it's that,
even though Houston is one of the biggest cities in the country.
Yeah, but I think, like, we're talking about Nashville. So yeah. I think we're talking about Nashville because of the way they're playing under BJ Callahan. And now we're absolutely taking note. And I'm just talking about our product on Apple TV, but every week, Dax McCarty has been waxing lyrical about Houston for quite some time now this season and loves what he sees from Ben Olsen. So it's with every passing week, you start to go, okay, hang on a second. We need to now dive in deeper on everything this team is doing, from Lawrence O'Nally's like electricity on the flank to Guilherme's MVP quality season so far. These are storylines that start to compound, and I love to see it from Houston, because the fans, when this team shows up and this team is good, the fans always show out in downtown Houston, and long may it continue, because I think this is as exciting, if not a more exciting team than the team that made the Western Conference Final in 2023. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah, yeah, that Open Cup winning team too that year. That was a good team, and yeah, this team feels different. Yeah, they're starting to earn the respect, I think, from a lot of people.
Does it feel better than that team for you?
I think so. I think that team was kind of, it felt like a lot of pieces that just came together and it worked. I feel like this team was a lot. Pat Onstad, Ben Olsen, that whole group has. I feel like they know what they're building.
Yeah.
Kevin, before we
No,
let you
totally agree.
go, we wanted just the Dynamo are second place. They've climbed the table this far. They've all season been talked about. They want to be top four. Not only did they want to make the playoffs again, but going from 12th, 13th place back to the top four, it seemed like a crazy goal. How good can this Dynamo team be at the end of the season if we're looking at this team?
I think top four is a really, really realistic goal at this point. And that's kind of sitting on the fence in a way, because the team has played 19 games. So what is it, 15 games to play to lock up a top four place. The reality is that I think Vancouver and LAFC are 1 and 2 this year, right, in the way, even though Houston sit in second place. So how do you try and break that mold? And how do you make sure that San Jose continue to fall? St. Louis are on the up. Dallas, I still feel, are hit and miss. And Real Salt Lake have lost Gozo, which is a really big blow. It's
Yeah.
there for the taking to try and crack that top two. It really is. And in terms of just sheer individual talent, this team has it. And also in terms of a unifier and a coach that can galvanize a group, I think there's few better in the league than Ben Olsen. Like, when Ben Olsen speaks, I listen. When Ben Olsen gives that motivational style talk, I want to run through a wall for that guy. So he's that sort of character that I love to see longevity in coaches, because sometimes there's ups and there's downs. Like, look at Seattle right now and Brian Schmetzer. He's on a 7-match MLS losing run for Seattle, of all teams. This is arguably the second best MLS coach of all time after Bruce Arena, who's won it all. And he's in the midst of a slump right now. And this happens in the game. And I'm just so glad to see Ben Olsen's recovery this year with this team after the way last year finished. And long may it continue, because this is a really fun team to watch. So yeah,
Yep.
I'm gonna say go try and crack that top two, but top four, absolutely.
Yep. He's Kevin Egan from Apple TV. Full day of MLS tomorrow, midweeks. Make sure you tune in. Like Kevin said, countdown 360 all the way up to the Dynamo game, a late one for us here in Houston, 9:30 kickoff. Kevin, we really appreciate the time, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Appreciate it so much. Lovely chatting with you, Dustyn. Cheers.